falling in love with a city has happened to me twice. In two places that couldn't seem more different on two opposite continents. On paper, neither made sense. I'm talking crime stats, political instability, inequalities. But somehow, against all odds, something in me quietly settled. The first time was in my early 20s, stepping off a plane in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt an inexplicable connection, one strong enough to keep me there for years, building a life I didn't even know I needed. The second time was in Rio, Brazil, and this one was unexpected. Because what was I falling in love with exactly? While riding on an airport shuttle in the middle of the night, seeing nothing of the city yet? That question followed me long after I left. Recently, I came across an essay by Paul Graham on how cities carry messages, and it helped me realize that it isn't just about solving the mystery of why certain places draw us in. It's about how life shifts when we immerse ourselves in those places, whether for a trip, a season, or longer. So today we're going to start with Paul Graham's essay titled Cities and Ambition. In this paper, he thought a lot about where to live to enhance his career. He compares a city called Berkeley with Cambridge, two cities that, although quite similar, do not have the same drive for, let's say, academic pursuits. All that to say, in a very simplistic way, that in his quest, he realized that cities share an implicit message, a specific ambition or set of values that is often encouraged in its inhabitants. I'm going to take a very odd example that Paul Graham cites. If I name the following 15th century painters from Florence, Italy, most of us can place them. I'm talking Botticelli, Leonardo, Michelangelo. Peep the accent. It's not only because of their exceptional talents that they're so recognized, but it's because Florence in 1450 was a center for this kind of talent. All of these lookalikes created an environment of rivalry, would it be healthy or not, role models, and really a network. So what Paul Graham says is that those type of centers amplify our ambitions for specific kinds of success, meaning that even if you were an excellent painter, let's say in Milan in the 15th century, your environment did not allow you to excel in the way Florence could. Cities attract people who already carry certain inclinations and then intensify that. And even today, great work still comes from a few hotspots. It's true that, well, the reality is that today our cities are much more diverse, which means that one city doesn't always equate one type of success, but it's still partially true. Let's take Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley might whisper, build something new, innovate. If you're surrounded by startups, you begin imagining startup sized moves. And maybe if you weren't in Silicon Valley, you would have never thought or wanted to build something or to create something. But I'm thinking actually, even if you already had that thought, you would most likely only make it in such hotspot. So Silicon Valley is an example, but there are obviously nowadays other hotspots for startups depending on the sector. What Paul Graham says, though, is that cities have implicit message, but we can't really transcend our environments. This actually brings me to my point, the title of this episode. Not every city, even if similar, will allow us to fulfill fully our purpose, which is why we might consider leaving. However, as I said in the intro, I don't want to only take the career aspect into consideration when speaking about these implicit messages. Paul's lens, and I'm mentioning this man on first name basis as if I know him, but Paul Graham's lens explains a lot about careers and ambition, but it doesn't stop there to me. There's another conversation happening below that within our bodies, which brings us to how and why I fell in love with the two cities where my body felt right at place, above and beyond career aspects. I feel like we tend to dismiss the sentiment of, oh, I felt great there, as trivial because it's not a resume bullet point, but our bodies are constantly reading environments, light, sound, crowd density, the rhythm of people moving. All of these sensory inputs feed a deeper system, the nervous system, which decides, are you uneasy? Are you safe? Do you feel at home? And when I think about moving to Johannesburg, or when I moved to Johannesburg rather, I did have a vision and a plan, but it wasn't yet secured when I moved. And in Rio, I was actually arriving on vacation. So I did initially feel like this is vacation bias. Obviously, I'm feeling so good here. This is vacation bias. But thinking about it throughout the years and reading this essay, I actually need to acknowledge that this was still an immediate bodily response and that it matters. And to me, when it comes to my bodily responses in these situations, the pattern has become quite clear. I grew up in the Caribbean, born and raised, baby. I was close to nature, slower pace. Then my family moved to Paris, France, where I learned to love big cities. So it created a hybrid need and a signature for me, which is which is that I need both. I love a big city, but I love and need an easy access to nature. Like living in Paris now, and what do you mean and we can't go to the beach? What do you mean the closest body of water is the dirty Seine River and not a waterfall? Johannesburg and Rio felt like answers to that need. Big cities, alive cities, but they have slower pace and nature is visible and breathable. It's approachable, it's there. When a city regulates your nervous system, it becomes easier to imagine the life you want to build there. And that's not purely economic. It's about whether your body and not just your bank balance wants to exist or not in that place. When I spent time in Rio or when I lived in South Africa, there were concrete sensory cues that I know now that reminded me of home. They were indeed very different from home, from Guadeloupe, but which is where I'm from, but it overlaps. It overlaps. It actually overlaps with what I need to go home, simply. And what I'm saying might not even speak to you at all, but that's the beauty of it. Find what feels great for you. And that brings me to our next point. The echo between the language a city speaks and your body answers to it or answer to it. What happens when the two line up or when they actually don't? The attraction to a city isn't just purely because of the city or just because of yourself. It's the echo between the two. A city sends a message and then you bring your own history, which is why the same city might have different effects on different people. But when those two overlaps, you and the city, when those overlap, you feel drawn. But when they clash, you feel, for lack of a better word, alienated, you feel trapped. Think of two people in Paris, where I live. One will hear the metro sounds, the fast pace, and feel a call to run, make, hustle, free will. It's liberating. I'm booked and busy. And for another person, it might feel like a constant alarm. It's exhausting. And I'm illustrating two people in my example, but this could be one person. This could be you, just in different seasons of your life. It could also be a matter of I love two cities, so I make space for it, let's say 1 week out of the year for this one city, and then I live in the other for the rest. It's not always a matter of one or the other. It's more like learning to listen to the cues of our bodies when we are in certain areas. The difference isn't the city alone, as I said, it's what each person carries. Our upbringing, trauma, needs, rhythms. This is why leaving can be both terrifying and clarifying. That actually makes me think of an influencer I follow. Her name is Amani Rakia, and she speaks about how she loves Denver, Colorado, in the United States, and she currently lives in New York. The reality, from what I understand from what she shares, is that she loves both. But Denver brings her a sense of calmness and grounding that she doesn't always find in New York. And she also loves the buzzing of New York, the opportunities as a creator, but the duality of it all is really what shapes her. She loves being in Denver and she loves New York. And she's like, for so long, I thought I had to choose, but maybe it's just a matter of like making space for the multifaceted me. If your city's message is pushing you to become someone you don't recognize, leaving, even temporarily, can reveal that mismatch. And it can actually surprise you being what being in the right city might do to you. It's like it holds up a mirror and you look into it and like it's your new self. It's truly that, it's a new self. When I think of my experience living abroad and even traveling overall, it actually brought me so much perspective and depth and layers that I don't know if I would be as bright and alive as I am today. I have a quick question. When you imagine a different city, what emotion rises first? What does your body want to do? And I think of Amani's experience and even mine, and I'm assuming millions of people around the globe. And it brings me to the next question. What does your current city ask of you that you didn't sign up for, that therefore might prompt you to leave, either permanently or temporarily? Now that you've answered that, or maybe you're still thinking about it, or maybe you're just sitting there silently, what do we actually do with this? I want to introduce something to the podcast that would be called taste notes. There would be conclusion notes on how the episode sits on my tongue. For this specific episode, I would say the taste note would be bittersweet. There's a bittersweet excitement in realizing that a city's pull means that you actually leave another, but it could be a gift and a direction. Leaving a place may mean you're being invited to a truer version of yourself. Sounds a bit deep, but it's true. Many people lived it, me included. Or at least it just means that something current must change in your life. Living the city you live in doesn't always mean packing up forever. Sometimes just long enough is enough to find a way your body and ambitions align. It can mean take the trip, or move for a season for 6 months to Chicago or, I don't know, Nice. Or just change the way you listen to your environment, your current environment. Let's say you want to stay in Paris, want to stay in New York. Listen to your environment so that you can design a life that fits your body as well as your ambitions. You don't have to suffer because your career is great here. So I'll leave you with one extra question today. Is the current you in your current city still the person you want to be? And if not, where might your body and ambition feel more at home? If this episode resonated today, I would love to hear your story. Share a comment, send me a voice note, a DM, anything. I read them all. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.